know everyone got your dice. Okay, guys, this is session 5 of The Curse of Strahd. I know there's some people who may be watching at home, so we'll just go over a bunch of things. For those who are watching at home who don't know who I am, my name is Stan Smith, or as my cousin back home, Lusak, calls me, Stan. I will be the Dungeon Master for this game. This is session 5. I wish we could start at session 1, but unfortunately this was brought to our attention and we didn't have this technology available as for session 1. So you'll get a quick recap of the game. If you have questions, we have somebody monitoring the chat on the stream, and they'll be more than happy to answer those questions for you. And again, this is The Curse of Strahd. If you're not familiar with it, it's a very gothic horror setting in the world of Dungeons & Dragons. We've been having a blast this past year playing this game. This group of players, they're awesome. When I do dungeon mastering, I use theater of the mind, sound effects, miniatures, minis, maps, and props. So you'll see a little of that throughout this game. And again, unfortunately, this isn't session 1, this is session 5. The players really didn't know each other. They came together in episode 1. But I'm going to give you a recap real quick. But before we get into this recap, what I'd like to do is talk about the story, and then we're going to talk to the players. The Strange Realms is here in Tampa, Florida. It's a dope store. If you ever get a chance, Google it. Come check it out. The prices are off the hook. The owner, Rob, takes care of everybody that comes in. He works out great deals. There is a Patreon as well. A lot of us are involved with that. It's kind of hard to find a place with a lot of geeks like us that want to come together and get away from the crazy shit that's going on in the world like today. And you want an escape. So a store like this helps with that. So if you can, support the store. Support it on Twitch, Patreon, whatever you can do, because it goes a long way. And having a place like this to get away from the madness is awesome. And more importantly, all of us are more or less strangers, and this store brought us together, and we all became friends, which is pretty dope.
Hell yeah.
So, anyway, so before we start the game, what I'd like to do is introduce you to these new friends, these players, and they're going to go and introduce themselves, the character they're playing, a little background, and describe what they look like. So, with that said, Aslug, the Bloodbringer.
Yes, sir.
Who are you?
Aslug, Half-Orc Barbarian. Found myself in this because I was running from my noble dad who wanted to kill me because I didn't want to follow the Orcish ways. Now I'm in this predicament where I lost a hand. So let's see what today brings me.
Okay. And we'll explain how he lost his hand. Oh, by the way, we will be dropping potty words, so just don't get offended if we do, okay? Next up.
My name is Kelsey. I play Severa, a human cleric. I'm a grave cleric, and I follow the god Kalimvor, the Lord of Death, and I help people to their afterlife.
Awesome. Very good.
The name's Giovanni. I play a human swashbuckler pirate named Cassidin. I somehow found myself in Barovia after leaving a port city, and discovered some interesting ties that I have with this land, and discovered that I'm of Vistani blood, Talango. And I'm sure Stan will kind of fill us in on some of those little links there.
Hopefully.
Okay.
I'm Dan. I'm playing a character named Bran, Branford Martikov, who is actually Ravenkind.
And I love Bran.
Yay! Bran has sacrificed a lot to be where he's at, to be with this party, and to finally rid Barovia of the scourge known as Strahd the Devil. So he is with the party now, trying to help where he can, as far as we know. So.
Okay, thank you. And next up.
I'm Tonic the Paladin, human paladin. I'm here for, like I mentioned before, may not be here for a long time, but
You will.
here for a good time, yeah. Defender of the weak, future smasher of vampires.
Oh, we will see, sir.
And lover of women.
Yes,
That's right.
and cheap wine.
And the gypsy women love him, which we'll get to later. And of course,
I'm Anthony. I play Joy, the human lore bard. She has a glass jaw, apparently, but is just always looking to make people happy with their music, and does not like Barovia that much. No, it's not a great place.
But you're so inspiring.
So, do you want to tell them about your little sidekick, by the way?
Oh yes, and she has this like Chucky-looking little doll named Piddlewick. He's a little monster, but he loves her, so she loves him, sort of, hopefully.
Yeah.
They're trying.
Right. And assisting me today is Olivia. She'll be helping out with some of the sound effects music, and she'll also be playing one of the important NPC characters you'll see during the stream. Woo! So I'm just going to just basically go over some stuff about the campaign itself, and then we're going to go right into it. The Curse of Strahd is a awesome award-winning campaign for Dungeons & Dragons. This party were strangers that came together and were trapped in a fog, and it ended up being the region of Barovia. This fog was deadly, and they knew there was no way back through the fog, so they moved forward to a village. And this is where the pieces started coming together, and this village was terrified villagers, and they kept talking about an individual known as Count Strahd von Zarovich, who's a lord vampire of this domain. And the characters, unfortunately, ran into him on 2 occasions, and both were very terrifying. And in the second occasion, unfortunately for Aslug the Bloodbringer, it was a one-sided affair, and Aslug lost his hand. So, there's a lot more other characters on the Facebook page. We posted up important NPCs if you want to take a look at it, because you'll hear some of these names coming and going. So, with that said, I'm just going to give you a reading from a piece of paper. And by the way, sometimes I'll read, sometimes I won't. Just bear with it. Also, there'll be set changes. Bear with that as well. We'll have longer intermissions when we have larger set pieces to change out, so just be patient with us. So let me read this to you guys. Our players are trapped within the dark realms of Barovia, a land of monsters, the undead, and the king of all vampires, Count Strahd von Zarovich.
Piss.
If you plan on playing this game, by the way, the campaign, please avoid it, because this game is filled with spoilers. Tonight's game, we find the players, they're at an old monastery called the Abbey of St. Markovia. They arrived seeking the help of the Abbey's lieutenant, Dr. Anton Gressenstein. He's a former holy man who turned his back on religion and now is a man of science. One of the players, unfortunately, which I mentioned about earlier, lost his hand to the vampire lord Count Strahd von Zarovich. Strahd could have easily killed him, but he wanted to send him back as a message to anyone who tries to interfere with the way he runs his kingdom. Before the encounter with Strahd, these characters that you see before you today actually met Dr. Gressenstein days prior in the town of Valaki. This is a walled city, somewhat protected, as they think, from the horrors that stalk the realms of Barovia. This is when the players first met Dr. Gressenstein and they learned about his sciences. And one of the things Dr. Gressenstein works on is human restoration and preservation. So when their buddy, Aslog, lost his hand, they immediately said, oh, we need to find this doctor. And they did. So today's episode is going to start out with them at this old monastery, meeting with Dr. Gressenstein in an attempt to try to either salvage a new hand for Aslog or prevent him from falling ill for infection. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the game.
Yes.
We only got one hand.
I like it.
It's getting clapped.
Person loses a hand, the jokes are again.
I know.
And we get
I
that
really
whole
hope he
all
doesn't
the
get his hand back.
There's like a handful of jokes. If
They're
they're
busting his balls for like, what, 2 weeks?
The whole
now?
time.
Okay. The Abbey itself, it's a cold, dismal day as a light snow gently falls from the thick gray clouds, which conveniently, by the way, block out the afternoon sun. The Abbey of St. Markovia is a gray monastery perched atop of a desolate hill. Tall concrete walls covered in dead vines separate 2 housing units within the abbey, one to the east and one to the west. Each housing unit has 2 floors. A massive courtyard separating these 2 housing units take up the majority of the abbey's grounds. Now, there's also a long wooden catwalk elevated about 20 feet above the heads of each of you players. you'll notice that there are partial scarecrows strategically positioned on these catwalks, and they're wearing rusted armor, wooden helmets, and spears. These scarecrows have been positioned to face outside the abbey walls to frighten unwanted guests. Just under the elevated catwalk, there are multiple sheds that line the inside of the courtyard walls. There is a lone well that sits quietly in the center of the courtyard, but directly next to the well is a large cage. And inside the large cage, a hulking figure within the cage occasionally slams the bars, which echoes throughout the abbey. Our players have yet to venture over there. I don't blame them. So at this moment, they've been escorted into the abbey by a semi-intelligent flesh golem that goes by the name of 13. And now, the rest of you players, you approach Dr. Gressenstein with his hunchback assistant, Cloven Bellevue, as we start. So you walk into the abbey all together and you explain your case, and Dr. Gressenstein obviously remembers you. His eyes immediately light up when you mention that he needs some assistance. Dr. Gressenstein, and by the way, people at home, he's in about his early 50s. He dresses Victorian, he's well kept, a thin, medium build. He has brown hair, but the grays are starting to come through. And again, he was once a religious man, but now turned to science because, in his mind, gods are not going to answer our prayers. They gave us the intelligence to do that. So, he runs over to you. My large friend, let me see your hand. And almost like a little boy at Christmas opening a gift, Dr. Gressenstein grabs his hand that's severed and he starts looking at it. Oh, my dear boy, infection is starting to spread in. He puts his hand to your forehead. He's getting cold. Quickly, escort your friend to the table. Now, in the courtyard, there's a lot of equipment that's it's scattered about. There are metal devices with spirals going up, electricity dancing to and fro. There's a large wooden table with leather straps. There's dry, dark substances on that table as well. There's some orbs with electricity dancing inside them, almost like it's trapped lightning bolts. There's also a table with beakers with odd-colored liquids that are bubbling, but there's no flame. Many books and a tray filled with all sorts of surgical tools already set up. As he asks you to position him to the table, and he's going and messing about at the table, he speaks some more. You need to understand, this area outside, though it is cold and a light snow occasionally falls, is sterile, extremely clean. The West and East Abbey, it's filled with mold and rodents. I can no longer do experiments in there, but out here, in this courtyard, this is ideal. The temperature's cold enough, it is pure, and trust me, I've done this many a times. Cloven! He claps his two hands. The hunchback, wearing a dark robe, waddles over to him. He's heavy, very grotesque looking, and he has a massive hunch on his back. He turns and looks at Dr. Gressenstein. Yes, master. Cloven, let's prepare the equipment. We have an operation to do. My friend, please come to the table.
Excuse me, Doctor.
Yes, ma'am.
How successful do you think this is going to be?
He stops, he pauses, and he looks up at the sky, the gray sky, and a light snow begins to fall, and you see some of the flurries land on his head. He contemplates, and he says to all of you, I cannot promise your friend will survive, but I've done this many a times. If I don't interfere or intervene at this moment, he could die from infection, as he's already showing symptoms. You have no other choices. There are no other medical facilities or somebody with my skill this close in the area.
So you're saying the 50-50, right? We're good with that.
Very well.
It's my life.
Well,
Well, you
doesn't seem
don't
like
have a
any other
choice.
choice.
Excellent. So please, let us get him to the table. So you guys going to escort him to this master table?
Yeah.
Okay, you do. Standing in the distance also is number 13. He is he's a very moderately sized flesh golem. He looks normal, however, his skin is all patchwork with stitches. His hair is long and matted and bald. He has a collar around his neck with a long chain and two metal bolts that come out the side. He also has bracelets with chains that have been broke off, and he has tattered clothes. And he stands meager and he watches as Dr. Gressenstein and the hunchback Cloven work frantically preparing the area for an operation. One thing 13 does is occasionally his eyes are on Joy, the female bard, and he's admired by her. He's always looking at her, and every time you see him looking at you, Joy, he bashfully turns his head and looks down. Occasionally, this creature 13 looks up at Tonic, and looks at Cassidy at the way their figures, and he looks over at Cassidy, and you see him lift his hand with his collar and the chain. He starts trying to fix what little hair he has on his scarred, stitched up face. He looks over at Tonic and sort of tries to stand straight and picks his chest out, and then he looks over at Joey for approval.
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
Great job.
Wow.
Yeah.
Gotta watch it
Look at
with that flirt.
I
and the
know,
thumbs
I
up
know.
stuff. You're gonna give him the wrong idea.
You're very supportive.
Yeah.
While this is going on, Dr. Gressenstein stops and he goes over to all of you and he says, I have to retrieve a donor sample that is adequate for your friend. If you can, please remove his shirt and his armor. And Dr. Gressenstein goes running off to one of the sheds underneath the catwalk.
Take it off.
Time to get shirtless.
Hot, that's hot. Woo! A bunch of goblins come out with money. Hey, yeah! Just kidding, by the way. Okay, so you guys are removing that. As this is happening, you see Gressenstein go over to one of the sheds. He fiddles with a bunch of keys within his lab coat, and he takes it out. Opens up one of the sheds, goes in. A few seconds later, he comes out, and there's frost behind him, almost like a refrigerator. And he has this very large jar with some type of frost on it, and there's a greenish liquid that swishes back and forth. He closes and locks with one hand the shed, and he goes back out towards you guys holding this jar. And inside the jar, you start seeing an image coming clearer and
Halfling
clearer.
hand.
Oh no.
Yup.
Yes,
What,
it is
Deadpool mount?
it is a baby halfling hand.
Baby hand,
No.
yeah. Baby hand.
It's actually a severed hand, and it looks pretty large, magnified in the water and in the glass. Dr. Gressenstein walks out and places it on the table near the table with the straps. He looks at all of you and he says, "This is the only donor sample that I have that is just large enough for your friend. It once belonged to an executioner." So, with that said, can we please strap your friend in?
Right. It's coming for you.
It's coming. Can you please strap your friend in? He cannot do this himself. Now you start feeling woozy and you feel cold. You guys notice he's pale, sweat's pouring down his face. Strahd did a number on him. Even though he let him live, the infection may kill him. So you guys are going to strap him down. So,
Make them
Get
tight.
out there.
Don't
as
let me fall
Gressenstein
off.
starts preparing all these apparatuses and equipment with Cloven the Hunchback, he says to you, I need two of you to strap him in because if he's not strapped in appropriately, he could fall out and be injured or something worse.
Do it, Thomas.
So-
So this is in lieu of like anesthesia,
Yeah, I was
right?
gonna say, is there
Well, he
any
hasn't done that
anesthetic?
yet. He just
Okay.
wants him strapped in.
All right.
Okay.
So-
Make it tight.
Sure.
He needs two of you to do it.
All right, I'll do it.
All right, what's your strength?
My strength is currently 817, I believe. It is.
And what's your
17,
modifier altogether, the total?
17, 18, 19,
20? Okay. Combined, you both have to roll strength saving throws of 20. If not, something bad may happen in the
It
middle of
was a lower
procedure.
strength. You
It may
do.
not.
I'm giving you guidance from.
Guidance is a D4.
It has to be a total of 20.
D4.
So you guys see these two. You see Tonic the Paladin and the pirate Cassidy reach up and they start strapping in their
Tonic.
friend.
Nat 20, 24.
There it is.
26, okay.
First nat 20. First nat 20.
First
Wow.
nat
Okay.
Yeah.
That's why he's going bye-bye.
All right. You're successfully strapped in. You're like, oh, and you actually feel it. Things start getting a little blurry because you actually feel you're getting sick and nauseous. You make eye contact with Cassidy as he pulls the strap.
Make it tight, please.
Trust me. You ain't going anywhere, boy.
Pirate knows his knots.
I have a tear in my eye.
Pirate knows his
Right
knots.
here.
Dr. Gressenstein walks over with a weird apparatus. It appears to be two tubes, and he places it in his ear. The two tubes come together, and there's a longer tube attached to a silver disc. Something you guys really haven't seen. He walks over to you strapped up, and he looks you in the eyes, and he says, "My large friend, may I place this on your chest?"
Save me.
He places it on his chest, and he seems to be listening to something in these tubes. His heart rate is elevated. His breathing is labored. We need to do this procedure right away. And there's no promises, my friend, but I swear to you, by the gods, I will do everything I can to help you pull through.
Fitty fitty.
I was once a religious man. And before I start any procedure, I'd like to say a prayer, but since I've turned my back on the gods to serve men, he looks at the cleric. Can you please
I can do the honors.
say a prayer?
I'm gonna hold my hands out onto him. Soul of the mind, the key to life's ether, soul of the lost, withdrawn from its vessel. Into oblivion you shall not pass, for I am the shield, the gatekeeper between the realms. Let strength be granted, so a slug be mended. some motivation.
Amen. Praise be the morning, Lord. Dr. Gressenstein says this procedure is going to take some time. I'm going to have Mr. Bellevue, my assistant, bring out water flasks and bread. All I ask is you do not interfere with me. Let me take care of things. In the meantime, and he turns over to number 13, the very meager-looking flesh golem, who, still staring at you, 13! And the golem stands up straight. Yes, Father! I would like you to go and tell Vasilka we have guests, and since night will be approaching, let us prepare lodging and food for them. Go, my son. The flesh golem stops and he glances at Joy once again and looks back at Dr. Gressenstein. Yes, Father, I will tell Vasilka. And the flesh golem turns and he starts walking, and he stops, and he looks back once again at Joy, and when you see him, he bashfully turns his head, and he heads off to the Western Abbey.
Little fella's got feelings.
The doctor grabs a cloth from the table, and you see him pour a liquid. It's like a purplish liquid with a glow into this cloth. And he starts walking over towards Aslug, your friend. And he holds it up. And the smell is powerful, as you all smell it. He holds it up. My friend, I'm going to put you in a deep sleep. This is a watered-down version of devil's weed. Just enough for somebody your size to hopefully not be awake during this ordeal your body's about to go through. You're still dizzy in the sweat, and you guys see he looks fucked up, like he's ready to go. The doctor places this cloth on Aslog's face. Aslog, you take a look at all your friends as if possibly this may be the last time you see them. Things start getting fuzzy. And Aslog, you gonna say anything last? Right before he even tries to say something, his eyes flip back, his head drops. He's out.
I'll see you when you wake up.
The doctor
He's a tough guy.
walks over to a bunch of switch and levers on some weird electronic equipment. He places his hands on it. He looks at the sky. It seems to be getting dark. He says, do not be alarmed with the noises and sights you're about to see, for this, my friends, is science. Weird lights and apparatuses and sounds that you've never heard before begin to surround and fill the courtyard, illuminating from this equipment. The doctor begins to work like a man possessed. And you see him cleaning the wound. You see him cutting sections of infected flesh. He's working frantically. Cloven, the hunchback, is standing and watching and providing him with instruments and tools and chemicals. Obviously, these two have done this before. So, the surgery has begun. But, you, Aslug, you are in blackness and darkness. And suddenly, Aslug, you awaken. You awaken from your sleep, and you find yourself inside and at the bottom of a tall castle tower. You look up, and there are a spiral staircase of cobblestone that go up into the darkness. The bat sonars and the squeaks are everywhere. Hold on a second, guys. I apologize.
Well, can we turn it down a little bit?
I got it. There you go. When you find yourself awoke in this bottom of this tall spire, a column, a dark tower, you start looking upward at the sound of the bats, but what you see is a glow red pulsating light. 50 feet above you, floating in the middle of this dark tower, is a massive, slowly pulsating human heart, probably the size of a van. As you stare up at this odd thing, bats are flying all around it. Are you awake, or are you sleeping?
Are you dead?
Or are you dead? Thank you. As you stare at this pulsating heart floating way above you, a familiar voice speaks behind you. If you make a, let's make a history roll, so you remember who this is. That's right.
Oh, beautiful.
The voice speaks, and you recognize it as Dr. Rudolph Van Richten. Standing behind you, he says to you, "You've done it, dear boy, you've done it! You found the heart of sorrow. Now's our opportunity to make Strahd vulnerable. And at that moment, there's a flash of light, and you black out again. So, for the rest of you, several hours have passed. The doctor seems to be slowing down his efforts. At one point he stops. He steps back from your partner. And he wipes his forehead with sweat. And Cloven the hunchback looks at him with a very creepy smile. Master! Master! Yes, master! Clapping with excitement. Now the rest of you just look at this scene like, what the heck? The doctor walks over to Cloven and puts his gentle hand onto the hunchback's back and very creepy-like strokes the hump on his back. Cloven, we are about to wake him up. Prepare your eyes. Cloven walks over to the table, the hunchback, and grabs these giant reddish black goggles and he puts it on his face. The doctor does the same as he reaches and grabs these black reddish spectacles. He puts it on his forehead. And as he's about to bring it down, he says to each of you, my advice is to close your eyes and look away, for there will be a bright light. It is quite blinding. So, are you going to take his warning?
Yeah.
You do. What about you?
The same.
Yeah, sure.
Can we peek?
Yep.
Or peek through my
Peek.
fingers.
No peeking.
Melt your face if you want.
Yep.
He reaches up, he grabs and he pulls this down, the lever. And suddenly there's a flash of light. Even with your eyes closed and your heads turned, you still see it and feel it. And suddenly, the patient wakes to a blood-curdling scream.
Hopefully no one was wearing headphones.
You guys immediately hear this scream, and you open up your eyes, and you see Aslug growling. Now, Aslug is a half-orc. He's standing, he's tied to this table. He's breathing heavy, his chest is going up and down, sweat is pouring from him, and he's looking angrily at everyone. Whether you're a friend or an ally, he doesn't give a damn. He is actually very upset. Dr. Grestenstein sees him and has a big smile on his face. Grestenstein walks over and looks at you. My friend, what is your name? Aslug. Aslug, my friend, you're in good hands. Now, on where your hand that was severed, you actually feel slight throbbing pain and some itching. And you look down, and you guys all see a brand new hand. It's almost purple reddish with sort of black fingernails. It starts to move. And you have feeling in that hand, but you're strapped down, by the way, so don't go crazy on us. And then he puts makeup and lipstick in. I'm just kidding. Okay, you see you got movement in your hand. The doctor says to you, in time, I will give you some medicine that will help your body not reject the hand. But I need to check you. Are you okay with this, sir?
Mm-hmm. Indeed.
Hold on consent here.
He puts the back of his hand on your forehead. The color and the movement and the temperature, everything is quite encouraging. Cloven, the patient's temperature is consistent with his body's core. Suddenly, when Dr. Grestenstein, he reaches up to grab your straps. Look, sir, are you okay with this?
Do it.
He tries to pull it out, and he stops and he looks over at Cassidy. My friend, you did it stronger than I could. Can you please? And he steps back.
Yes, so I'm getting my friend out.
Okay?
Kind of hesitantly, so looking at Aslug. I'm just
Now,
like,
Aslug, you being half-orc, and you're very angry, you start seeing familiar faces, and your anger slowly starts to subside, but you're very, very nervous.
it's me, mate. Calm down. We get you out of this thing.
So,
Go ahead and
all right.
take it off.
You're strong enough, stronger than the doctor, where you're able to undo the straps that you put in. The doctor immediately runs to your hand. He goes to grab it and he steps back. May I? He grabs your forearm and he starts inspecting and looking at your hand, turning it left to right. The vascular composite transplant appears to be a success. I am a genius. I am a genius! I am a god! And he stops himself and he composes. And he takes his vest and his lab coat. It's kind of odd that he all got excited. I am proud to help you and all of you. You should be okay, my friend, in time. As it is getting dark, I cannot have you go about the woods. So, you will be my guests within the Abbey this evening. will have quarters for you to lodge, and an excellent dinner is being prepared. Vasilka, who you'll meet shortly, is an excellent chef, and I believe today she should be making rabbit stew. We will celebrate the success of your friend's operation. Will you honor me by coming to dinner? He holds his hand out and he bows his head.
I shall be there.
I am
Of course,
ready.
yeah.
You've done us this kindness. I mean, how can we turn it down?
Okay. As then he turns to the hunchback, Cloven, and the hunchback says, "Yes, master. Cloven, please clean and sterilize this equipment while I escort my new colleagues into the West Abbey." And as he holds his hand out, it's getting dark out. Suddenly, all these lights, pop, 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 start popping all underneath the catwalk. And you all take a quick look and you start staring. It almost looks like light bulbs coming to life. Dr. Gressenstein says, "Fear not, those are illumination orbs. I've been able to simulate electricity and have it circulate throughout the facility. Every place will be taken care of with light. There will be no dark shadows within the Abbey. But one last thing," and he sort of looks very serious as he scans all of you. "Fire is prohibited within the Abbey. My patients, they have a fear towards fire. So if you please, no flames. If you need heat, warmth, you will let me know and I'll take care of it. Also, the chemicals I use in my experiments within the sheds throughout the facility are very flammable, and the Abbey itself is very old. A lot of the woodwork is extremely flammable. In essence, this can't be a tinderbox. So I ask you to respect that. No flames."
Okay.
No flames. No
Who
flames.
by
Are you
that?
saying fire's bad?
You're not lighting it on fire.
Goodness.
Excellent. Join me into the West Hall for dinner. Okay. Okay, so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to move some of these pieces and I'm going to set up the dining hall. So if you want to stretch for a few seconds.
That I can do.
Yeah. All by yourself again.
Woo!
This guy knows how to fix my hand.
What's
Give him a kiss.
Lonely Nights. It's gonna be a two-person thing.
Pray to God my soul to take. I don't
So
get my hand
we
back.
brought a floor fan. Is anyone getting hot?
This guy's gonna die soon.
We could bring it in. You want to get it?
Yeah, I'll go
Plug
grab
it
it.
in.
I'm not sure where we have electricity.
Florida's just been obnoxiously hot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think probably over there we can put on some